Look at this. Dude, I love this. It's already boom. I mean, I'm so used to doing this at home.
Get the headphones on. You're good to go.
I can monitor myself. Hello, hello, hello. Ooh. Oh yeah. It's crispy.
Oh, it'll get there. If not, we'll just take off our shirts and then it'll get more traction.
Well, I'll bring you a fan. So, I mean,
No, you're good.
If you're going to take your shirts off, let me know. That's great. That's great content.
Yeah.
We're going viral in here, buddy.
I haven't dieted enough for that, so.
Wow.
Nah, real thanks, man.
3 camp.
No, but we're only using one. So let me tell you about this setup real quick. Number one, I owe it to my friend Manny, whose wife has Miami Lit podcast. And
Okay.
I just told him, hey, I want to have my own podcast. I want to set up a room. I have some extra money to burn because taxes. And Uncle Sam, we're gonna rate me, but I have to give him credit, and also my good friend Jake, who's a realtor. He actually just got, I think he reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's been working at it for like 3 years. For a realtor to have 1,000 subscribers, pretty cool. And he puts out good content, but
You hit a K. That's it. Now it's gonna scale. It's gonna.
that's the goal, right? It's the goal. I haven't even been active on this, bro. I haven't. I have so much other shit going on. But
Do you want to be more active? What's stop? I mean, you got work to do, obviously, but what holds you back, really?
It's not so much the recording, because I could do this all day. I could have conversations in here and do it all day and have great conversations. It's chopping it afterwards, because no matter what, I have so much content already, and if I had a team of interns, let's say, who could sift through it and just pull out the gems, because that's what's going to draw people to. People are going to jump onto Spotify and see a 2-hour podcast and say, fuck this. But now you give them a minute here,
Yeah.
30 seconds here, or a little 15-second clip here, and you're pumping that out constantly, then you'll draw traction. But that's what's time consuming.
You just had me think of something, because I had a podcast. I've been thinking about bringing it back.
I saw. Actually, I took notes. You see, I got notes on you, bro.
And I never, okay, so here's what I did. And I only chopped it up to make like a little promotional clip, but I didn't chop it up. I just took a little segment.
Yeah.
I never edited it.
Yeah.
I just would put an intro song, the outro. I would listen through it. I would remember, was there something funny that I want to take out that they didn't really maybe want to mention? But I would just ask, hey, is there anything in there that you didn't want to share?
Yeah.
And then I just put it out, because that always gets in my way too. I'm like, oh, I got to make.
But that's the part. That's where the work comes in.
But so what I thought of was, I will get people DMing me, hey, this is great. I love this episode, blah, blah, blah. There's someone in there that is going to want to work on your podcast to help you create clips, who's super stoked about it, who you say, hey, man, look, I don't have a big budget for this right now, but if you help me find the best clips, maybe we can work something out.
Well, if you're out there, sir, I'm here, because I have so much content, and it's just a matter like whether it was, and people that you know that I've interviewed recently, Mel's podcast is like full of gems, like, and just the podcast in its entirety is so compelling. It'll draw empathy to people who don't understand what people with mental illness are suffering through, and then in the same breath give people hope who are suffering from mental illness. But then how do I dissect it, pull out the things that I know or that I feel will draw attention, or will be like, wow, I gotta listen to this. Because if you have somebody else do it, no, I don't hear what you hear. You understand? Like, if I listen to your podcast, you're gonna find segments or little segments that are 15 to 20 seconds that you're gonna say, that's powerful right there. And I might completely miss it, but I'll find something else that's powerful.
Yeah, you have to find the person who thinks like you in this way,
which is hard,
as
right?
much as possible.
And then they have the motivation and the time to want to break down the content, and then they have the skill set to use Final Cut or whatever software you use.
Intern,
find them.
They're out there.
Find them. Let me know who they are.
Someone listening, come on down. You say, hey, look, you get to use this cool studio. You get to mess with awesome cameras.
Dude, you could use the studio on your own time. It's fine with me.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, this is vacant most of the time too. I've thought of like, oh, who wants to use the space?
Yeah.
Or can I bring in high school students to come in here and just train and mess around and be creative? It's here. It's just a matter of how do I find these people that are really interested, motivated, are going to be consistent, and all those other things, right? So
You could train them. That could be part of the pay.
oh
You know, it's like you're a mentor.
yeah, I would love that.
So when I think of you in mental health, I think it's so cool what you've done here and therapy, because I've been having this burning question.
Mhm.
I've been using BetterHelp. I found someone. I got lucky on the second shot because the first guy had crazy hours that for me to be able to schedule with. I'm like, I'm not going to do a session at 1 a.m.
It's crazy.
That's going to make me crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to feel good. So I said, nope, not going to work. The second person I found, it's worked out incredibly well. The guy is like the right guy for me.
Okay.
And I connect with him so well. And I know people over the years that have had this issue. I've had it before where it's like, how do I find someone that I connect with that works well with me? It's a process. And I've been lucky. The therapist that I've worked with, it's just happened to work out. I think I've been super lucky.
Mhm.
But I know someone right now that she's dealing with like a therapist she was working with, and she's like, why am I paying this person? This person is not helping me. They're like giving me diet advice. They're not getting to the root issue. We don't connect, but I don't know where to go. I don't know where to look. And I was wondering, is there a service out there? How do you do this outside of referrals, knowing someone? Like that's such a, I feel a bottleneck for therapy.
Part of it is like dating, you know, part of it is like dating for the person. Like you want somebody who understands your perspective on life, or is going to understand your perspective on life, maybe understands your cultural background, understands what it's like to grow up in Miami or in a big city. Because you're not going to have, I mean, no offense, but like some hillbilly from, I don't know, middle Alabama who lives in a farm, who's your therapist, but then doesn't understand your way of life in a bigger city. So I think it's just dating your therapist and honestly giving them a shot initially. But if you've been dating for a while and there's no chemistry, then it's okay to break up, and it's okay to even bring that up. I think what a lot of people struggle with is they won't say that to the therapist that they're seeing. That person has the moment to exercise the ability to be assertive and say, hey, I feel like either this relationship isn't working out, or you're not listening to the things that I really want help with. And it's the patient's job to do that. But I think people are afraid or fearful of that confrontation. Oh, but what are they going to say?
Yeah. Oh, even getting rid of the therapist. Like, I think they'll keep going. I'm noticing this. Like, you keep going with the therapist. It's like, it's almost like you're having a hard time breaking up.
That's the exercise in itself.
Yeah. It's
Hey, can we work on us breaking up? Because I want to terminate our relationship. You as my therapist, I don't think this is going to work. Can you help me sift through how to end this relationship in a professional manner? But let's use this as a therapeutic lesson as we break up. Because I'm going to end this relationship. Because these are things that happen again and again and again in life. Sometimes we have to end friendships.
Mm-hmm.
We end romantic relationships. We end jobs. But then so many of us hold on and either self-destruct or sabotage, rather than saying, hey, let's talk about this. Let's put this on the table and say, you feel like it's not working. Or at least I feel like it's not working, and therefore the relationship can't work. But how do we do this amicably, respectfully, and let's learn from it? I mean, it's a lot easier to do that with a therapist than it is with.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, they should be trained for that, right?
They should understand how to take the breakup. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Like, I'm gonna be very, very transparent here. If there's anything as a man, my whole deal is I love women, right? I'm attracted to women. I can't hide it. Sorry, guys. Biologically, I am charged to be attracted to women. So when I had my last therapist, I told her from the beginning, I was like, if you want to know what the problem is that I chose you because you're an attractive woman. Let's start there. I'm not hitting on you. I'm not telling you I'm trying to get with you. This is not that kind of relationship. But we need to pick at that from the beginning so that I could better understand myself. Because if that's what I'm motivated by, I didn't look at your qualifications. I was like, she's a pretty face. Sure. I don't mind talking to her. That's an issue. I should look at that. I should analyze that a little bit and say, okay, how is this affecting other aspects of my life as well?
Sure.
But if I'm not open enough with a therapist to just be raw, real, and transparent and be like, you're sexually attractive and that's why I chose you, not because of your qualifications, not because of your degree, but most people won't go there. And I have to be as raw and real and transparent with my therapist as I can to get the results that I want.
Have you noticed a lot of people hold back and they miss out on the magic of therapy or the effectiveness of therapy because they never truly let themselves go to just be like, hey, look, I'm just going to be an open book with this person. Who gives a fuck? I'm going to just let it all out. I've noticed that works for me.
Yeah.
When you just let it all from the beginning, I almost feel like it's almost crazy in a way to say, using the word crazy is a little bit interesting in
Use
this
crazy,
context.
it's fine, yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like it feels a bit unhinged to just be like, because I just let them go from the start. I'm like, I'm dealing with this. I'm addicted to this. I'm doing that. I'm lying about this. I'm boom, boom. Like in the first hour, you know?
It's probably the best way to do it. Just
And
let
that's
it rip.
Yeah, let it rip. Because when is there enough therapy? You get what I'm saying? Is there a point where you can let someone go and say, hey, look, you don't need to see me anymore? It's an interesting business model, like almost like training. It's like, hey, I've taught you how to do all the things. You can go do them now. But if you want accountability in those things, I think I'm still of value to you. But don't we want to get there as quickly as possible, like to a solution? Don't people come to therapy and say, I'm looking for a solution. I am conflicted all the time. I'm anxious constantly. I'm depressed. I cannot get out of my head. Is there this?
It's up to the individual. Therapy can go on. There's people who see us the same therapist for years, even decades of their life, where it becomes like a unbiased friendship because this is supposed to be a professional who's helping you. But if it's solution focused therapy where you're coming in with a problem that you want to fix, and that could be shorter term, and you could have an end goal, an exit strategy, or a tapering off of therapy where you start going to a bi-weekly and monthly session. So it just depends. There's no right answer for you, Nelson, in terms of, yes, therapy should be limited and that person should then go off on their own and succeed in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it's a consultant kind of thing where you give several different options to the person, right? Like I don't hear these options. Like the way you just said it right now makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. Is there going to be an exit strategy here? Hey, we meet together. Hey, look, I have a goal where I want to kind of get over this thing or understand this part of myself in 3 months. Can we try to do that? Like, is there any plan of attack because I don't hear that. It almost seems like you get with a therapist. It's this unending thing. You never know when it's going to end. They don't really give you a game plan. No therapist has given me a game plan. Hey,
you should
here's
ask
what
them.
we're going to do.
That's what I would completely ask them. Hey, what's the plan of care here? What are we doing? What is from week to week? Is there a progression? Just like there is in working out, are there progressions here where I'm getting more expert and we're leveling up, or what's our end goal? Do you have an end goal for me? What are you seeing right now in me? I think those are all normal questions to ask, but I think people are just afraid to go there. So if I were you, I would be very direct and honest and just say, hey, like, what are we doing? And they'll probably ask you, well, what do you want to do? Because you know that's how it goes.
Yes, man. My favorite one is when the session ends. Like he goes, "Okay,
Time's up."
Yeah, he doesn't say time's up. Just, okay, well, it's been. He doesn't say it's good or anything. He's just like, okay, well, I'll see you next week. It's like such a funny little cutoff thing. You know? Well, that's why I like what you have here, right? It's a different vibe. I see you online. I think you're heralding into this new revolution in mental health and therapy because it gets all this like, you know, sitting on the couch feeling, I don't know, I'm getting away from the mic here, but it has this old school like, oh, tell me your problems. And this person just looks at you and, you know, they're very quiet and it's really cool to see you and like, I don't know, do you still do...
I'm not seeing patients.
You're not seeing patients.
I haven't been seeing patients for like a year. About a year.
When you were seeing patients, were you putting yourself out there on social media still until they got to know who you were?
A lot of patients were finding me through social media. Still now. Oh, I follow Adrian on Instagram. Can I see Adrian? They're like, sorry, he doesn't see patients. They're like
Are there other therapists that do this that you inspired you, or you've seen them? You're like, man, that guy, that girl, whoever was doing this so well, and putting themselves out there?
It was, if there's anybody who inspired me, it was Gary Vee. Like, just saying, put your face out there. And I was like, he's 100% right. Like, everybody has their story. Everybody can just be their authentic selves. And the more that you do that, the more exposure you get. The more exposure you get, the more people will be drawn to you, and that could draw business. And if what you're offering is something solid, then it's only going to grow exponentially. And that's exactly what I saw. So shout out to Gary Vee.
Dude, Gary Vee.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of therapists who are putting themselves out there, but I think they want to present themselves as the therapist or as the mental health professional, rather than just, this is who I am. Like, this conversation right now, I'm not thinking of myself as in the role of therapist or psychiatric nurse practitioner. I'm just me. Some of what I say might be an opinion that has nothing to do with science, or it's not evidence-based. Because if I was speaking to you in that manner, I'm going to tiptoe a little bit more. I'm going to be careful with what I say, and I can't necessarily be completely authentic, you know? Like, me talking to you about looking for hot therapists isn't necessarily something that's going to go well, right?
Right. Yeah,
but it's just saying, hey, you know, that's a vulnerability for me. And if you're going to sit there and judge me for it, well, that's on you. Because if I could put your thoughts on a big screen and we can have an audience look at them, then you'd have a bunch of people judging you too. So it's just, the more you're vulnerable, the more you're going to have critics. That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to see from, especially someone in this field, where they can put it out there and show it. We hide so much, even in this field of trying to help people get down to the deepest, darkest things that they deal with. There's still this tiptoe, there's this image that you portray. And
yeah, I don't want to portray an image. I grew up in the church, and I saw a lot of portraying images, and then a lot of shit that was hidden behind closed doors, and then wouldn't be spoken about. That's not the road I want to go down. I think the church offers amazing things. I'm not trying to dog out the church. I know amazing pastors. I know great people who are in the church, but I just don't like that whole, like, the world is watching me, so behave in a certain way. It's not for me. It's not for me. I'd rather just be myself, and that way, hey, if you're drawn to that and you understand that I'm just being raw and real, and I'm human just like you, and I have faults, and I have downfalls, and I have depressed days, and I have amazing days. It's just the way it is. Like, I think it was today you just posted about your life being like a ticker on the stocks, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how life is. And why do we want to show this upward trend all the time? But we're afraid to show those dips. Bitcoin is down right now, people. Bitcoin is down.
We're talking about dips. Yeah, like you did daily dips, right? That post is talking about just, I think, getting addicted to the high of having upward trends, and then having a down day and be like, oh shit, am I on the downward trend now? Is this going to be the next few days coming up? Are going to be like this? Is this going to be, should I prepare for this? Should I really save up? What's going on here? Like my mental stores. And yeah, it's, I don't know, man, especially trying to achieve things and getting in this work mode and the grind set. It's like we're inundated with so much information. I find the more that I pull the plug and I get away from it, and I'll just like read a book and focus on reading that one book. It's like, oh, this shit does not matter.
Because it's a reset.
Yeah, but is it a reset? Shouldn't it be a thing all the time where I've been reading this book called Atmamun.
Okay.
And he says something really important. He says, when you are drowning, you don't think of the process of getting out of the water. He's like, you get out. Like, you know what I'm saying? You get on the South Beach and like you're like, oh, I've been down to. You just get out. And this idea of trying to get to something, like trying to get to a state of mind that's peaceful, trying to be less anxious. It's like there's a lot of effort to try to get to that thing versus being like, if I really wanted this thing, I would just get there. I would do everything I could do to get there. And there's this idea of not being serious enough. And this is what I've found with myself. I'm not serious enough about wanting peace. It's almost like I'm addicted to having turmoil or having an anxiety or having something to worry about. It becomes this commonplace thing. I've adapted to it.
Yeah.
And like the ticker, right? It's like I know that I could have a down day, and it's almost like, oh, is there something there that it doesn't feel good, but is there something underlying that's like, oh, but you know this so well. So like, yeah, we can hang out here for a little bit versus just being like, I don't really want that. And just being at peace and being like in the moment and having the reset, like having constant resets, like never being stuck in that.
And look, no matter what, you're gonna have down days. But if you're addicted to it, that's a different story, right? Because sometimes people get addicted to toxic relationships. You know, they come and they complain to you over and over and over about that relationship, but your answer is like, "Why don't you get out?" And they don't.
Right. It's like they're not serious enough. They're not serious about actually getting out, but they want to talk to you about how much of an issue it is.
Exactly. So your answer, you know, the same as drowning, is you should just get out. If you really wanted to get out, you would get out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think you kind of explained it yourself, right? You're feeling this. So day to day for you, just because you're on a down day and you're in a dip, and you're used to, or it's familiar to you, like you said, I think that's okay. What matters is, do you sit there or do you try to make improvements to get out again?
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's familiar doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I think we're getting older, right?
We're getting older.
Yeah,
It's happening.
Yeah, it's happening. I'm gonna be 40 in a few months, bro. So I
Dude,
know
the cold plunge is doing good for you, man.
Yeah, you
look
see that?
good. You're only 40.
It's crazy. But I think that things don't hurt as much as they used to. These little things that happen to you in life, they lose their sting. I think that's what it is. So maybe it's not familiarity. Maybe it's a tolerance. Maybe there is a dip, but then like, I've felt this before. I have felt this before. This is familiar. It does hurt. It does suck, but it doesn't kill me. I'm going to learn something from it, and I'm going to move forward. And I think that's what I've learned, as at least in this decade of my life. That's definitely what I've learned, is you're going to get fucking kicked in the face. You're going to get punched in the gut, but it's going to be temporary. And I come in with the mindset of, maybe I'm just optimistic, but I know it's going to get better. Like every time something has happened to me, it's almost been like a reset, and then there's a level up.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I have played with this idea about it getting better. And where I've oddly found solace is in telling myself, what if it didn't get better? What would I do then? Would I continue to have this mindset and perspective, or would I change that mindset and perspective and be with it if it didn't get better, ultimately creating a better scenario or situation, because it's really just in my mind.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, because there's people who live in what we would consider to be a state of not getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just perpetual pain and suffering till the last moment of their life. And what would change that person's life? What would it make it as worth it as possible? Right. And I think it would have to be that. Like when I played that game, I'm like, oh, I would have to make whatever the best of this is. I'd have to change my mindset.
Of course.
So even it's just like playing it in the negative, right? It's like, oh, I think there's a lot of this out there where it's like positive thinking, like it has to be positive, like you have to go through positive. But what if it doesn't get positive for a while, and then you're like defeating yourself, and you're like, wait, but I thought positive thinking would get me here, and then it never does. But it's really not about positive thinking. It's about like accepting the thing you're in, and that you can change how you see the thing.
It's about changing your perception of the world around you, changing your perspective. I worked with the homeless population for 2 solid years of my life, where every morning I would start at 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I was either walking around downtown, Bayfront Park, or there's a 40-block radius in downtown where there's the highest concentration of homeless people in Miami-Dade County. And that was my office for the first 3 hours every day. And exactly what you're saying. There's people who you'll meet out there who've been out there for years, and you'll go to help them. And number one, they don't trust you, right? Because you're that glimpse of hope, but then that hope might lead to disappointment again. And so they'd rather sit where they are and be quote unquote happy with that life that they're living without having any expectation of improvement or it gets better. They don't have that. They're just living day to day. Their successes are in their survival. Their successes are in just being. Their successes are in their next meal. Meeting Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They're just biological needs, or it's safety, food, shelter, water. That's pretty good. There's no self-actualization. There's no like these huge achievements in life. They're just living day to day. And you'll meet people. They're not depressed. They're not suicidal. They're actually pretty funny and fun to talk to for a little while, and pretty lucid in their thoughts too. You'd be surprised. But they just accepted that it doesn't necessarily get better. This is just where it is. And there's no expectations for something else. So is that a bad thing?
Yeah. Have you met people in that state who are happier than people you know
Yes.
that have everything?
Yes.
Seemingly.
Yes. Yes.
Do you think that they've discovered something, or they just understand like this raw essence of life, that you really, the perspective mentality is just everything? And although it may seem to us like this person is off their rocker, they're way far gone, like I'm going to raise my window up when I pull up to the light in traffic. And I mean, it makes me think sometimes, like I know that area you're talking about in downtown, like I pass by it all the time, and it's like, it makes me think like, are there people that just can't be helped, that want help just because of whatever's going on chemically in their brain or mind, that like, do you believe that people could be too far gone that like want help? Or if does it even matter if they are so far gone in a way that...
Don't you know people who live in day-to-day society that can't necessarily be helped? Because they choose not
seemingly
to.
so, yeah, people like who seem healthy and can totally figure out their way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just such a, I don't know, I guess it's something that boggles my mind, because it feels like we're trying to help everyone. We like to think we're like trying to help the world in many different ways, and like, do certain things need to be helped? Do certain people need to be helped? Maybe we're the ones that need more help than anything. Like,
or sometimes the help is for ourselves and thinking that we could help them.
we're like filling a hole for ourselves, like taking care of ourselves.
Isn't somebody told me that Mother Teresa was the most egotistical, selfish person, and I was like, wait, why? And they're just like, well, because the people who are the altruists, who are really there, just completely self-sacrificial, and are there to help everybody else, in the end, they're helping somebody else because it feeds their ego, and it does. Like, we go out to try to help people around us, and really, it feels good to us to help someone else. But it doesn't mean you can save everyone. It doesn't. There's people, I'm sure, who walk into the gym sometimes, and you really want to help them, and you'll invest a lot of your energy into them, and then they disappear. Like, you wanted to help them. You were there for them.
Yeah.
You were invested in them, but they weren't invested in themselves.
Do you think it all comes down to we're all self-serving, and the beauty of being a self-serving individual, if you put it in the right places to help others, that others are helped in the process? Like, Adrian gets fulfillment from helping someone through therapy or helping someone get connected to a therapist. I get fulfillment from the work I get to do, helping people stay safe at their work or get fitter at their job. Like, there's something that fills me that is undeniable. And do you think that's like what humans are? They're ultimately self-serving, and through their self-serving way, that they end up helping everything.
I mean, some humans, but I think
Not all.
yeah,
Right,
yeah. For
clearly.
me, for sure, I think I thrive on helping others. That's just the way I'm wired. What superhero did I idolize growing up? Was Superman. Why did I idolize Superman? He was fit, he was strong, he could fly, but beyond that, he was helping. He was always helping. But then when does helping others become just something negative to you? When you try to save everyone else, when you're trying to salvage everybody else, and then sometimes you neglect yourself, and that's something else that a lot of people go through, right? I'm sorry if I'm jumping subjects, but that's just we're talking about. So selflessness in itself is great for somebody who's extreme. If you're extremely depressed, right, I would tell you, perform acts of service. Get yourself invested in helping other people.
What if you can't? I mean, because I remember when I was very depressed, the thought of getting out of my house
Okay, so that's a different
was
level.
terrifying. So how do you get in? And I would know, the crazy thing is, you should do this.
Yeah.
You have to get out.
Yeah.
But it's so heavy, and the amount of energy, it's like, how do I even start? Like, is there something that you could prod someone? What do you do in that scenario? You know, like, how do you help someone get out of that thing? Like, versus like, come with me, motherfucker. and,
Yeah.
like, bring 'em-
From a symptom standpoint, if it's the severity of the symptoms are so bad, then honestly, we go to medications. That's just
That's the thing. That's the little prod.
yeah. That's
Because
the prod.
they change the
Yeah.
chemicals, and it's like,
Look,
okay.
if that person is already motivated, if that person is it's okay. Hola, mi amor. How you doing? We're in the middle of recording a podcast. You're live.
Oh, I'm live, baby. I love you.
Okay,
Are
that-
you?
Are you just
Are
calling
you
me about dinner or what?
Are you whatever Wednesday? Like you're gonna go out tonight, or am I cooking?
No, you could cook. See, whatever Wednesdays. I like that. Hello, baby. I'll call you afterwards.
Okay.
Thanks for interrupting.
Sorry, love you.
Love you too. Bye.
What's whatever Wednesday? I like that.
Whatever Wednesday, she
Just
gives you
fucking
a
eat
free
whatever.
day. Yeah. No, just go.
Yo, to eat whatever you want.
Go
drink,
disappear. Go hang out with one of your friends. Yeah.
Whatever Wednesday.
I never heard the term, but I'll take it.
I'm gonna start that today too. Done.
Let's go.
Fuck it.
Talk to your girlfriend about it first, bro. Yeah. That might not end
Like,
well.
hey, we're having whatever Wednesday, all right?
She'll be like, yeah, what? What the hell?
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, me. So in terms of like that severity of depression, I would definitely look at medications, but maybe the person doesn't believe in medications. All right, so then I got to work with that patient to see what are you willing to do, and how can we motivate you to get going. Do you have a family member that can help you? Do you have a friend that will come and hold you accountable? Do you need therapy multiple times a week in the beginning? Well, we got to take baby steps to get you going. And part of that depression is tricking you. Like, you know what you need to do to get better. Well, then that's the point where you need to work through whatever it is that's holding you back. Because if not, if you continue to isolate, if you continue to just have negative thoughts, then where are you going? So we got to work through something. If you want to get better, you got to work through it. It's not just going to happen. And so at least the medications can help limit some of the symptoms, but medications are a Band-Aid, right? We can soothe it a little bit. We can soothe the symptoms. We can lessen them. But that ulcer still lives underneath. And the only way to get rid of an ulcer is to debride it, is to scrape the shit out of it, is to get fresh tissue and allow it to regenerate. It's painful.
Yeah.
But that's where growth happens, and that's where healing happens. But people don't want that. People want the Band-Aid. That's why we go to alcohol, right? We go to alcohol, we'll go to weed, we'll go to sexual promiscuity, we'll go to bars and clubs, and they're Band-Aids at the end of the day. Even a workout might be a Band-Aid because you need to work through deeper than just the dopamine hit that you get from the workout itself. Because there's still work to be done beyond that. It feels good. It's good for you. but it's not going to solve trauma. It's not going to solve just whatever you've been through, whatever baggage you're carrying around.
Cold plunge.
Cold plunge has answered everything, bro.
So yeah, thinking of like things that kind of wake you up or scrape the thing in the underbelly. This is great, by the way. This is Pablo Escobar
In a mariachi outfit.
Yeah, I love it. Like I think of psychedelics. I think of cold plunge. All these trendy things that do have value.
Yeah.
And you've been doing a bunch of cold
plunge,
plunge, and I want to go to anatomy. Check that out.
You're more than welcome to join me anytime, man.
Dude, that looks so good. But yeah, but that's one of the things where I feel so good immediately after I do a cold plunge. I'm like, oh, I'm alive. There's something here. And then psychedelics have been the things that have been, like I've done microdoses and done some heavier doses of stuff. And now I see ketamine is
Ketamine's huge right now.
I mean, ketamine, it's crazy to think of ketamine because I remember I had friends who would do like, they go into K-holes. They would go tripping and they'd be like, dude, I was in a K-hole. I was like 10 feet above myself looking down and I could see my whole life. Have you, like, what is your experience with this stuff, man?
So
super fascinated by
I
this.
don't have any experience with, I'm interested in doing ketamine therapy, just out of curiosity. Ketamine infusions are big right now. I would love to do ketamine. So there's two ways to do it. One is just you kind of decrease all the stimulation. You get a ketamine infusion and you just lay there and have like this hour or whatever of introspection where you go into that K-hole. Yeah. I don't think that's the medicine, the medical term, but that's what it is.
Apparently the dosage is not K-hole territory either.
But still, it's enough to make you dissociate and go to another place that you wouldn't typically go in a conscious state. And from what I've heard, people definitely have, and not only from what I've heard, from what I've seen with studies, people definitely have a remission of symptoms immediately after the infusion. People who are very depressed, suicidal. But again, this isn't first line of treatment, right? There's always these levels of care, and it's more so that they're suggesting we use ketamine after the other modalities of treatment have been attempted and failed. Unless the severity is that they're just unresponsive to medications and they're so depressed and suicidal that they need something.
Isn't there something to getting right out of the thing, though? Like the rocket ship, like, all right, we know we can do CBT.
Yeah.
You can, start taking some medication, but, it's going to take a few weeks, maybe a month or two. Like, boom, go take, do the IV drip, or now I think they're doing, like, you can take a pill and you do like a...
There's a nasal spray. There's Spravato nasal spray, which is a ketamine nasal spray.
Like that kind of just like, if you're deep in it, how do you grade someone? Be like, look,
if there was a silver
you're not
bullet,
getting out of bed.
Yeah,
let's try this
just
out.
Go here. Well, number one, insurance doesn't pay for it, right? So you got to come out of pocket. Let's start there. So there's a barrier to treatment already with money. Number two, it's still it's still very much so controlled, so it's not accessible to everybody. And three
isn't okay. So like, three.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, like I think of accessible therapy's not cheap.
It's not.
Like
how much? Actually, I was going to ask you, how much are you paying for BetterHelp?
So they charged me $320 a month, and that includes 4 45-minute sessions a month. But here's the thing:
45.
I wasn't.
Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah. I wasn't using all 4 sessions because I travel often for work. So I was using about 2. 1 month I used 1. They still charged me $320. So I had an issue with that, and I told them, hey,
this is crazy.
Charge me per session. I don't understand this.
And what
model.
did they say?
And they're like, oh, we're sorry. This is the model, though. You signed it, but we're gonna give you back half of the money. Blah blah. And so even talking with my therapist, I'm like, hey, look, I want to do this like twice a month with you. Currently, can we work something out
aside from BetterHelp?
You know what I'm saying? Like, and he wasn't necessarily into that, but he said, hey, look, this is other service I use to give my services. Check them out. Maybe it'll be more affordable. But yeah, $320 a month. I'm like, dude, I have a job where I can do that, but that's not cheap, man. That's like a car payment for some people.
Yeah,
and that's 4 45-minute sessions. And
what you're not even using them.
Right. I got charged for the ones I didn't use. I mean, I got charged regardless. And what if, not only that, but if you don't find someone that you connect with, right? Maybe you have to take those dates. It's like you feel that you're eating through that money. You're like the stress of like, oh my God. And I can only imagine if someone's going through some tough times, maybe holding a job is more difficult. Maybe you don't have enough money. Like the accessibility of care, even though you have more options now than ever, which is pretty exciting. And then how do you, the person you working with, like a professional, like if I was a therapist, I would want to get paid a fair rate for my services. Like, I want to also live. And
Of course.
so it's an interesting thing. Like, why aren't these things subsidized or like?
I don't have answers. I could only tell you this. Like even here, I'm not making money off of it. I'm preaching therapy all the time. Insurance pays for medication management. Period. They pay for medication management. The reimbursements for any provider is much higher. So if you think about my costs here, right? Think about rent. Think about the software that we use, the billing software that also charges a percentage when we send out the claims, the front office staff, the office manager, billing to front office staff, marketing. Now put all of that. Now the therapist that's conducting the therapy also gets paid. And my profit margin before all this overhead for therapy is maybe $20 to $30 at most per session. Now deduct all of that. There's not much there. So it's not a profitable business. If my business model was strictly therapy, I probably wouldn't have a podcast room. I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I'd be seeing patients. So that goes back to just reimbursement rates that your insurance company pays whatever therapist. Because you should be able to use your health insurance instead of paying BetterHelp or me or whoever cash out of pocket. Why aren't you able to use your health insurance to find therapists? Because most therapists don't want to take it because the reimbursements are so low that they can't live.
Yeah.
It's just that's the nature of the beast. I can't be any more real, raw, and transparent than that.
I mean, but because it's so crazy how we preach mental health and all this, and everyone's a mental health advocate now. And then, and like even into the government, right? They talk about mental health, and it's like, all right, put your money where your mouth is. Subsidize this.
They won't. If you want to see where all the budget cuts come from the medical sector, it's from mental health research. It's all cut from there. In the hospital setting, when I worked in HCA, they would do budget cuts. Guess who would get hit first? It wasn't the cath lab. It wasn't. No, because all those parts of the hospital generate huge amounts of revenue. Mental health is the low man on the totem pole.
What do you think like are the low budget ways to get your mind right or
Cold
to work
plunge.
on?
No.
Yeah, because everyone's preaching some sort of like, you need to meditate, you need to use this app, you need to do a cold plunge, you need to do sauna, you need
What
to
would you
work
tell
out for this
somebody-
amount of time,
yeah.
you need to sleep perfectly, you need to. It's such everything is so task based. It's like it'll drive you mad trying to get all that.
If I was
in
brand
order.
new to working out, what are 3 or 4 of the main exercises that you would tell me to build my base?
You would squat, you would hinge, you would do some pushing motion, and you would pull.
So
And you would just get good at those things.
go back to the basics. It's the same. It's the same in terms of you're asking like what's a very low level, no barrier method of helping your mental health. Start with the basics.
What would be your basics?
Movement, daily movement.
How much? How long? Does it?
I would tell you. I mean, there is where I would go
Start.
with the recommendations of the Surgeon General, right? Yeah.
Would you? That's not what you do.
I know, but I would say if you want to start raw,
Yeah.
most people are not moving.
For sure. So they got to start. Yeah, so I agree. You have to get them where it's sustainable and they
Yeah.
actually want to do the thing. That's probably like 5 minutes.
Yeah. I wouldn't do 5 minutes. That would be, I would say, probably 30 to 45 minutes daily of moderate
45?
intensity.
I would hope so, but I don't know. I think you need to start even 5 is obviously a very low
Give me 30 minutes
Barrier.
of a power walk, bro.
walking.
Let's start there.
So walking.
Let's start with that. Let's start with get out of your house, walk.
Get outside. Go for
Hopefully, while you're walking, you can engage with another human.
a walk. Go
So
walk
there
with
has to
someone
be
else.
community support. There has to be relationships. There has to be conversation. So those are 2 things. What else?
So Adrian, I'm walking now. I'm like I have someone to walk with. But then I get home and I'm like, fuck, man. This shit's-
What's your passion? What's your
shit
drive?
sucks.
What are hobbies that you have? So that's number 3. What are some hobbies that you enjoy? You have a lot of hobbies, right? You're like me, but you play the guitar too.
I was, but
So you play the
I've
guitar.
recently-
You've dabbled with podcasts. You became like a handstand expert in a matter of like 3 years, right?
Not an expert, but I yeah.
Pretty decent.
I could
pretty
do the
pretty
thing.
compared to most people. You're an expert. You enjoy working out. You do CrossFit. You have a strong community support.
I don't do CrossFit because whoever's listening, they'd be like, he doesn't do CrossFit.
Oh.
But I work out.
So there you go. But you go to a place where there's a lot of people that are doing things like you that are also like-minded.
I've been thinking about this too because the workouts I've been doing feel a little bit lonely now because it's just general strength stuff, and I usually do it alone. And I'm like, I actually want to get into CrossFit and doing a class because I love the fact you're just doing it with other people and someone tells you what to do, and there's a lot to that. Purely for the sake of like, I go in the morning, I get it done. My mind is going to be more under like my control.
Yeah.
You know, like I worked the dog out.
Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's good.
So the community thing, that's what I'm
So
saying.
important.
It's very important, like to be doing things with other people
So important.
around fitness or whatever it is, versus like
It doesn't
it's a
even.
task.
It doesn't have to be in the fitness realm. I don't care if you go to a guitar club or a book club.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Do I find a huge advantage in group fitness? 100%. If I was ever to shift and get into just purely fitness, it would be group fitness. Why? Because I believe in it. I know the relationships it builds, the community support that you have, the motivation, the leveling up of intensity of a workout just from having people around you who are cheering you on as you go.
Or you're competing with them.
Or you're competing. Yeah, absolutely. I compete too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you get me to do that, me and my friend Alex, we used to stand on opposite sides of the turf and just do sled pushes back and forth until we burn out, burn each other out.
Hell yeah, dude.
And it's great, right? And it's fun when you put that sled light and you're just flinging it, and it's sliding like it's on glass, back and forth, like skating. Woo! And it feels good. And then when you know that he's burning out and he's dying and he's gasping and you're still like, you're showing him like, yeah, I could keep going, but let's go. It's fun.
Yeah.
But you don't even have to go to that level as long as you're working out with somebody else. I used to work out with even an older guy or an older woman, and I know that just by me being there and encouraging them a little bit is going to make them work so much harder. And then they're dying during it, and then in the end they turn and thank you because they know that you're not pushing them to kill them. You're pushing them to encourage them and motivate them, which is completely different. So yeah, community, group fitness, walking, and just, hobbies are very important too.
What do you think about the self-talk piece? Like, and when it comes to basics, is there anything you would guide someone like, hey, not even meditation or like taking time to read or like something spiritual? Is there something like that you feel is like pretty basic and essential for most people to have?
I think before even jumping to a suggestion for what they should read or learn about, I think they should just assess and listen to how they talk to themselves to begin with. Like, what are the things you say to yourself? What's the conversation? What's that internal dialogue that you keep on repeating that comes up over and over? Write those things down and then start figuring out, where did those come from? Are those actually your words? Did they come from someone else? Was that something that was told to you in your childhood? Where is this negativity coming from? Why is it there? That's where I would start.
Writing was so on the money for me when it came to getting through therapy and like getting out of depressions. Writing all these things down, there's like, you get to see how you think.
You have such an interesting style of writing. Your style of writing it shows me, it's somebody might look at it and be like, oh, this is a little bit fragmented, but it's literally your flow of thoughts. And then it's always injected with humor in between. There's always a line in there to throw off the reader, but then you get right back to the subject. So it's pretty cool. That's probably what I've enjoyed the most about a lot of your posts was, not just that you're raw, real, vulnerable, especially coming from another dude, because there's not too many dudes that are online that are just open. Like, you talk about your struggles. You talk about, I'm having a shitty day today, and I don't know. I'm caught in a fog. There's just a haze around me. Life feels confusing. These are things that everybody thinks, but nobody says. So number one, thank you for that, because a lot of people don't do that. But beyond that, the style of writing that you have kind of walks me through what you're thinking. What's your background in terms of writing?
Well, thanks for noticing that, because it's something that I have a tough time putting things out there, even though it feels easier than ever. But you talk about like being a guy and putting yourself out there, like it makes me question so many things. I'm like, how does my girlfriend feel about me writing? How does my family, like someone will start following me. I'm like, is another family member following me? Like, oh my God, what does this mean? What does this mean?
Are they talking about me?
Yeah, and like, what are they gonna think about me now? And these things really creep into my mind. And the people that I've admired growing up, and this might sound weird, but like Howard Stern, like I admired him as a kid because I would watch E late night.
Mm-hmm.
My parents put a TV in my room, and I was like blown away by how crazy the show was,
Mm-hmm.
and how transparent he was about his lackings, the things that most people would never talk about. And I knew like what other adults would think of this, and how like he would talk about his dick size. He'd be like,
All the time.
yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
And it's like that would be and he was and he had so much power in that.
Yeah.
Like he owned it. So it's like no one could ever put that on him. And I found it hilarious, and I always related to this comedy around the weirdness of life and the things that we like hide and we're afraid to tell others and show, but we all feel it, and it's happening. And like, why is it that so few people are willing to do that in this short existence they have? And I've felt those things too, and I find myself falling like prey to these ideas of like, what are people going to think? What is this going to mean for my job? What is it going to mean for my future? What does this mean for my employment, my ability to make money? But there's something that always felt right to me about following these like comedians, people who are just like would really craft an idea, talk about it, maybe self-deprecate, and it was all about their language. And I like to read. I've always read, and I found the way words flow on a page. And listening to myself, I'm like, oh, I'm so clunky. I wish I could be smoother. And so
great.
Writing was something that even I follow this guy, Ryan Orico, where he's very much has that style. I think that's why I gravitated towards him. He's like this, I don't know if you've seen Seth Godin for marketing stuff, but Seth Godin's amazing. He's a hell of a communicator, super clean and crispy, never curses, but he's always talking about marketing as in like, who do you seek to serve? And how you can, he made marketing and selling feel very human to me. And then with this guy, Ryan, where he was like very kind of vulgar and like flagrant in ideas, but he was very true and honest to what was true to him. And it reminded me of like Stern and these people wrote a lot. Like this guy, Ryan, will give me ideas of this thing called But Because and So. So he's like, if you have, this was more recent, he gave me this one, but I worked with him, like some consulting with him, and the idea is if you have something that's on your mind and you don't know really where to start, you use but, because, and so to help you formulate what's going on or get it onto paper. And so the way this works is, let's what do you have, like what's a burning question on your mind right now, or something you want to tackle, or a question you have, or
A burning question that I want to tackle. Until recently, where we found that there was 1,700 transactions that hadn't been processed. Is this business going to survive?
okay.
There you go.
Okay, so is my business... I'm not sure if my business is going to survive, but I'm very confident in our abilities to get through this storm. And then you the way he puts it is like, it should be difficult. The writing and getting through this and adding to this should be a difficult process. He goes, if you're flowing and the words are moving too easily on the page, he goes, you're not digging deep enough. You're not doing what it needs to be done here. I'm not sure if my business is going to. What was the words we used?
I'm not sure if my business is gonna make it. Basically,
I'm not sure if my business is going to make it because, and then you're now talking about why, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure if my business is going to make it. So maybe here's what I'm going to do. Here are the actions I'm going to take. And so using that writing prompt and writing every morning, I've seen my writing maybe like you're able to tell me this is like literally me getting feedback for my writing now that I don't know unless someone tells me. To me, it looks a little bit more clear to what I'm thinking, but you're telling me, oh yeah, this is my intention. My intention is to like sprinkle in some humor and for someone to see what I'm thinking as best as possible to get into my mind through my words, through a limited number of those words.
Yeah.
And by being cleaner versus using a lot of fluff.
And it's even, there's no fluff, and it's the way it's fragmented because it's sentence, and it's a sentence, and then almost a new paragraph, and then a sentence.
Right, there's a space.
Yeah,
and a
there's
sentence
space,
and a
yeah.
space.
So it's
and I stole that. I took that from this guy too, because to me, when I read his stuff, I'm like, this is easier for me to digest. And I think this is how a lot of us like to take in information. Like the people that I admire most is this guy, Seth Godin. He speaks almost in this manner. It's not run-on sentences all the time.
Yeah.
And so when I write, then I'm trying to get my writing closer to my speech, to how I convey the words on a microphone. Because I find myself using so much fluff, run-on sentences, no points being made. And so I'm like, these two things are fighting.
Yeah, like
each other
a
constantly.
little while ago, I was even like, why do I keep on saying 1 and 2 and 3? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, Adrian? Just like,
that whole thing is fascinating to me. Like the inner dialogue you're having.
Of course.
Like how amazing is it that we're processing all these things? You're having an inner dialogue while you're having a dialogue with me.
Of course.
And then you're able to look back on the dialogue you just had with another dialogue.
Yeah. But most people won't even have that discussion because we're afraid to be vulnerable to say that we were thinking about what we were saying after we already said it. Right?
Yeah.
So
My God, they would know that I was thinking about something else while they were talking to me. It's like, they're thinking about something else too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to be there as much as possible.
Of course.
Absolutely. But it's going to happen. And that's where writing has been a fundamental part of, I think, my growth and my ability to see what I'm thinking, how I'm thinking. And it's this nice complement to the therapy. It's not the replacement for therapy. I think I see it in a few different levels, and maybe you could talk to this. I mean, this is your wheelhouse, but I see it like a therapist is like this non-biased source. Someone you don't know becomes like this friendship, you said, or relationship, but they don't know anything about you. They don't have these ties. They don't have also like there's these power dynamics with you. You can leave those things at the table, and then you have your friendships, which you can bounce ideas off and they can give you perspective. Maybe they can call you out. It can be, but there's power dynamics within any friendship group that I think just they're living there. So they don't have the same impact of this like singular experience with a therapist, but they're very powerful and help you like remind you of your humanity in a different kind of way through friendship. And then you have like things you do by yourself, like going on a long walk, like seeing a thought comes in and you say, like that's a very dirty, wicked thought. Why do I think it's a dirty, wicked thought? What, and like playing this like game to follow it and explore it. And then there's like this other level of writing where you see how you're thinking in a concrete manner. And then how you talk to yourself or talk to someone else or talk to the page versus letting it play in your mind. There's like, these different levels that are occurring. And then like almost I think to have a well-rounded take care of myself approach, you need not all of them all the time, but maybe you need like sprinklings of some of them. And maybe some people need more of a bias towards one or the other. But that's how I've kind of like come to this point where I'm like, I kind of need to be playing in all these realms in some way. And at times where I'm not getting like most of them or some of them, something's usually like off. And then when I return to one, and it typically tends to be writing, it kind of like creates a cascade. I'm like, okay, I need to call my friends. I need to talk to people. Like I'm isolating.
What I appreciate about writing, like, okay, from a therapeutic standpoint, writing is huge. Why? Because you have all these ruminating thoughts that are jumbled in your mind, and then just getting them out of your head and organizing them on paper is going to be extremely helpful. Because sometimes there might be 4 main themes that are spinning in your head, and they feel like 1,000, right? So just that exercise of saying, okay, wait, what are the issues I'm having right now? Right? What are the main issues? Whether it's professional, okay, let's break those down. Okay, financial, okay, let's break that down. Oh, relationship wise, these are the issues I'm having in my relationship. And then with myself, even. Okay. So just the exercise of writing them and organizing them. We're not a computer where we're storing files in our head. Like those thoughts are just kind of spinning on your desktop, I guess. They're not organized into files.
Yeah, you just got a bunch of like random files.
Yeah, random files thrown around.
The names are terrible, untitled. You're like, oh, exactly. What's untitled? Oh no, yeah.
So that's exactly what it is. But so that exercise of getting it out of your head and onto paper is so essential for so many people. Like, do it before you go to bed. Do it, well, any time of the day. But if you're just having trouble and you wake up in the middle of the night and you're having insomnia, take a second, grab a piece of paper, use your phone, and just organize your thoughts. That alone is going to help you at least say, okay, well, now they're out of my head, they're on a paper. I'm going to tackle that tomorrow, or I'm going to get to that whenever. If you go into the conference room where we just were, look on the board. That is my brain. It's just my brain from the business standpoint. And it's just segments of marketing, front office, operations, finances, reaching out to other practices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I was getting to was the fact that I feel like my writing style is more so, I want to be very descriptive and use good examples, but I'm not necessarily showing my thought process as I write. I feel like it's more so making it palatable for the reader. What I appreciate about your writing is the fact that it is what it is. Like, these are my thoughts and this is my line of thinking. And I think I'm going to make that an exercise for myself to try to see if I could not filter it so much and make it palatable, more so like this is my line of thinking as I'm scattered a lot of times, right? Or like my ADHD goes back and forth where I'm thinking about this thing and the next line has nothing to do with the line before, but then somehow in the end you see how they're all interconnected.
I know that I get caught up in that too, because I'll like today I put something and I'm like, wait a minute. I got stuck. I'm like, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
I just went from one thought to another. That doesn't click at all. Like, do I just get rid of this altogether? Because I do have the intention of, I want someone to think about this thing and I want them to ask me something about it. Like, I want someone to engage with me on it. Most of them, I don't want to just put it out into the ether. I feel like it's a lot of what I've put out is that. And it's hard to not do that. I think the people who do it really well, they get you questioning and thinking, and they get a response, and not because they're just out there. Like, at least the ones that I appreciate, they get you thinking, and you're like, I need to understand this. I need to talk back to them. I need to like create a conversation, something flowing here. And I struggle with that all the time, man. I feel like that's like listening to myself and saying, oh man, am I just making this palatable for the sake of someone being able to like it to be within the lines, to be okay? Is this going way out?
Like, I want to push, but then I want to make it palatable. It's almost like, oh, is this going to get shared a lot? And it's like, it's not really how I should write. I want to write and be authentic, but I do want it to get shared, obviously, for growth, for business growth, for just for my own quote unquote personal brand, whatever the fuck that means, right? But I just want to be real. And so sometimes I'll be like, oh, this is authentic. Like, this is real. This is me. But then other times I'll go back and I'll read. I'll be like, oh, that's brushed up. Like, that could have used, there's 2 or 3 lines missing in here, but maybe I took them out because it doesn't fit real cute in this little white box that I have. So just different exercises. What media do you feel is like your strongest suit? And it might be rough, but
Oh, and what do you mean by that?
Like by putting out the messages that you really want to put out. I know you use your little mic, right? You use your little mic.
Yeah.
You write often. You were using a podcast before. Where did you feel, or where do you feel the most comfortable in terms of putting out what you want to put out?
I was excited to do this again with you. Well, this is our first time, but to do this again, like a podcast.
Yeah.
There was something there when I was doing it that it's really exciting to me, and having long form conversation is not something you see very often, but it's the thing that I digest the most. I think of what do I like, and I like comedy. So that tiny mic, like to me, that's like a great way to get people in, right? Like just make them laugh in some way, and be vulnerable. So audio and video are huge, and I think they're what I gravitate to the most. But sometimes I'm conflicted right now because Instagram, I've had this, I don't know, the algorithm doesn't like me, or maybe my content sucks, but I have less and less people watching my stuff.
I was about to get into that with you.
I have people unfollowing me. It's a weird thing because you're talking, and a lot of the times I'm doing it to work through something in my mind that I have questions on, and it helps me. But there's also the side of me that's like, but what's the point? Like, this got like I had one that I put out the other day. I got 2 views. And I'm like, did it not serve this to anyone, or was?
Well, part of it is the algorithm, right?
I think so, absolutely. But it was interesting because I did kind of like I was like, oh, I want to play with this. I did a presentation, like a keynote, and it was just like flashing images. And I was talking, I created a story out of the images. And it got like 2 people saw it. And I'm like, does it not like, it was just a tiny little image of my head in the corner.
Okay.
Because I use like OBS. I don't know if you ever used that, where it's like you could do like screen share.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You have the camera on you. So I had like my little tiny talking head in the corner. And I've done content where like I sing. I'm like, oh, I'm embarrassed to sing, but I'm gonna sing. And it is this thing now where on Instagram I'm like, what do I do here? Like, what do I?
Well, what's your goal?
With this?
What's your goal with Instagram?
And this is such a great question, because my goal, I feel like I was creating a goal of having some sort of success.
Okay.
I think that was creeping into my mind, and it was creeping into my work.
Okay.
And I was not enjoying it or having fun. And so now I only really put stuff up when I'm like, this is fun. Like, and it's more stories. I usually do less post because the posts are talking videos, but then they get like, the engagement's very low because you're talking to the camera and people bounce out.
So
and
again,
I get it.
What are you looking for? What is your goal with the content you're putting out?
Exactly. This is the issue.
Yeah.
Is that I realized I want to do things that I would like to watch and that are fun. And I think that's the only thing I should focus on, because when I've done that in the past, when I did that with the podcast, I would get like, yo, this is awesome. I want more of this. This is fantastic. Like, can you talk to this guest? I love what you did here. I've listened to 10 in a row. And I was just doing that purely out of fun. Like, I didn't have any intentions of making money, anything like that. And I think my mind has been there. Like, my actions have been there, if I'm being honest with myself. Like, it's been like, how do I make money from this thing eventually? What is it that people kind of want to see? What has worked in the past in terms of the algorithm or Instagram? And it's like, I know what it is. I put some fucking handstand photo without a shirt on, and everyone's like, oh, and then all of a sudden it gets like 1,000 something views in like, 10 minutes, and you're like, oh, is this Instagram also knowing that I'm doing a handstand?
It's just the algorithm seeing how long
how long people watch it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How long they stay on that page. Do they bounce out? Do they just skip through it? The more eyes that stay on it, the more that starts kicking it to your other followers. Did you use a reel? Did you use trending music over the reel? Right. Carousels are in now. Is there a carousel? Like, what hashtags did you use? Did you put a location on it? Because now people are using locations a lot more. From an interest standpoint, a lot more people are going to use hashtag handstand. TikTok search.
I don't put hashtags. I don't do any of that. So
that's why. Yeah.
Well, what I've also realized is that it's interesting when you change what people like seeing the same thing over and over again. They like knowing who you are. They like you being predictable in a way. And I fucking hate that.
That's exactly what my freaking social media guy was telling me. He manages the practice social media, and I do my own personal. And he's like, Adrian, you can't post about mental health one day, about cold plunging the next, about entrepreneurship the next, and then a funny post the next, because Instagram doesn't know where to categorize you. I'm like, good, you know,
Yeah,
whatever.
and that-
What am I gonna do?
I used to do this thing, the movement challenge, and that's where I had like this explosive growth where I got up to 7,000 something followers in like a few months. And then I had stopped doing this movement challenge, and then I started doing more talking videos, and I started moving away from that. And then over the years, my content has changed a lot because I've had different interests. I'm like, oh, I want to try this. This is fun.
Yeah.
I want to do this different kind of video. I want to talk about something else. And when you make those changes, it fucking hates it, because I see it very clearly, especially now that I move towards this content where there's no hashtags. It's a talking video of myself to the face. It's not like this beautiful angle where I have this incredible lighting.
Again, what's
If you
the
make
goal?
changes, exactly. And the goal is always to have fun. To have fun and to be able to create, like think creatively, watch myself change, evolve.
Because I
Be able to-
actually wrote it down somewhere here. Because over the last couple of months, your Instagram was more so, it was just experimental, completely experimental. Where you would jump on, like you said, you were embarrassed about singing, so you would sing, or you would talk about something and that made me gravitate towards that, because these are things that I tell so many patients and people that I know, that they ask me, oh, how do you put yourself on social media so much? And I'm like, by doing it. Like, you're not gonna be comfortable. You have to just put yourself up and let it go into the cloud. People are looking at we have thousands of pieces of content being flashed at us all day. If you really think that somebody is gonna sit there and tear you apart, number one, if they do, they need to get a life. But number two, if they're talking about you, that's still good.
Right. They took the time.
It's still good.
That's a great way to look at it. It's so true that like you are a flash in the pan, which kind of fucks with you a little bit. You know, that's you're like, what is the point? That's what I think sometimes. What is the point? And you said, what is the point?
Well, the point is that sometimes that flash does capture certain people, and they pay attention and they understand what Nelson is doing. Oh shit, Nelson is just using Instagram right now as an experiment to help him get through his anxiety. And Nelson is using Instagram to talk through his thought process and expose that, to weaken it, and in the same moment strengthen other people who are watching, who may be experiencing the same thing while we're spinning on this fucking globe in the middle of a galaxy, not knowing which direction we're going in our lives. So that flash may be insignificant to some people, and you have 99 views, but out of those views, you're doing something not only for yourself, but for somebody else who is actually paying attention. So again, going back to growing up in the church, there was a lot of good things instilled in me. And one of the good things is, if you put yourself out there and you say something in front of a stage, you give a testimonial, if you're changing one life, then it's worth it. I got goosebumps. Because I really believe it. I really believe it. So, yeah, the algorithm isn't giving you what you want. It's not feeding your ego. But if you are that flash that is changing somebody's mindset or making them feel like, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, I do think like that. Damn, I'm struggling too. Then it's worth it. To me.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is. And that's where I've had to look at myself and say, hey, am I going off track? Am I getting pulled in by flashy, shiny things or ideas that are not even mine, that have been put there, and the idea was to get me excited about those flashy things, but the things I care about are the DM were like, yo, thanks for talking about anxiety today. I was like, I've been going through some shit. You were addicted to weed and you talked about it, and like, man, when I did that one, I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did. That was one of the things I wrote down here too. I had a whole bunch of shit I wrote down. We're not even touching it, but it's okay.
Well, so talking about what I brought up earlier, like when you're drowning, you don't think about like you get out. I was drowning, and my work was feeling it. Like I almost lost my job. Like there was all kinds of shit that in January, like beginning of January, like I kind of had this like real heavy like crack of the bat. Like I basically like lost a relationship, and I've been able to luckily like rekindle but I lost this super strong, like this really important relationship to me, and I felt like I was drowning right away. I was like, oh man, it's very clear what's gotten me to this point. Like I was, was getting high first thing in the morning, just isolated, not talking to my friends, barely, just lying to everyone about it. Like, Chris would know about this shit, and he was like, I was lying to him. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm good. Like just pretending to be sober, clearly not. Like getting on meetings and everything, and just not giving a fuck, and basically like letting my life just be like, I'm just gonna let this shit just blow up, and like. But then it took that like crack of the back, excuse me, to realize, I'm drowning. Fucking, I don't want to drown anymore. And I remember telling myself, dude, you have a problem. I bought a sack of weed. I know the whole thing too. I'm like, I know what this is. I get high before I even get high. It's like the buildup, the guy coming to my place, buying it. Like, I know what's going on here. I'm like, man, I'm going to do this again. Like, what you're doing, but you're like, but this is what I do. Mm-hmm. And I remember like rolling up the J, and I take a hit, and I'm just like, it just tasted terrible. And I'm like, this is the fucking thing. This is the thing that has gotten me to this point, and I have not stopped. I've been doing this for like 15 years, on and off, and many times just consistently for, months and months, years. And I took that hit, and I was like, I can't fucking do this. And I put it out. I threw it away, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I deleted the guy's number, and then I was like, but I forgot how I got to this point where I ended up, it was like, I don't know how much longer after that, where I was like, I need to tell my family. Like, I need to tell, they don't know about this. They don't know this thing about me. And so I told my parents, I told my sister, and that was like the thing that I had always needed to do, was to like admit it, to say, I have a problem with this thing. It seems so innocuous to many people, but like this thing has been holding me back, and I self-isolate, and I just do this thing, and I lie to everyone about it.
So why, when you would smoke, you would completely isolate?
Yeah, pretty much. I would even like bail out on like things with my girlfriend, and I'd be like, "Oh, I have a lot of work to do."
But
tonight.
is it because you
and
were?
I would stay at home and smoke.
Is it because you were ashamed that you were smoking? Like, if you have, how about this? If she accepted that you smoked, right, and you were just open about it,
and she knew that I did. I would do it also like around her and all that. But it was more so a hiding of like the extent to how much it ruled my life, and how much I just wanted to do it, and how much I would just do it out of habit. And so, yeah, to like even just saying like, oh, I have a bunch of work to do tonight. It's almost like you're cheating, but you're just like staying at home smoking weed. Like, I'm cheating with a joint, It's like,
why do you think it was so consuming? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are probably thinking, like, weed doesn't do that to me, right? Like, it doesn't have that effect on me. It doesn't have that hold on me. So I don't really understand what Nelson is saying, because it's not like that.
Yeah, it's that's an interesting thing, because I hear people tell me that too. They're like, "Oh, dude, it's not the weed." And I'm like, I know a lot of people who are still smoking, and they're very much in the same thing that I was in. And I get it. It becomes so habitual. It becomes almost a part of your identity. It's how you go to sleep. I think that's a big one for a lot of people. That was it for me. It's like,
for me, it's waking up. I'll smoke a little clip right before I go to the gym.
See, like, I know, and I have friends like that too, who are like,
and I'm fine. Like,
exactly, they're fine. There's no like attachment. There's not like, for me, it's like, it was weird too, because I know how much it would change kind of my personality. It's like, with whatever substance it is, like if I had that Red Bull right now, I would be fucking crazy right now. I'd be going like,
so do you think you're just
so amped up?
You're very sensitive to different chemical stimulants or depressants? Yeah.
I have a coffee in the morning and I'm done, because it gives me energy throughout the. And if I have it anything past 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm not sleeping that night. Like, it's gonna be hard. And so weed would just like, it would chill me out, you know? And I was on this cycle. I think a lot of people get in this cycle where you're like coffee, stimulant in the morning, depressant at night, weed. Like that's your go to bed ritual. And I would, when I talked about it on Instagram, I would get people DMing me, oh my God, I've been doing this for how many years? I've been like every night, that's how I go to bed. I smoke a little bit. I don't think it's an issue, but like I kind of am concerned a little bit about this because it's just, it would like cut the edge, you know, which was really nice. And then I would wake up the next day and be like, oh, I feel a little bit like hungover. I'd have my coffee. I go through my day, feel a bit like stressed at some point, cut the edge. And it just became an easy cycle. And it wasn't even, at a certain point, it became, I'm not sure what triggered it, but I was doing it during the day. And I think it was a stressful moment in work or where I just like was like, if I just take a little bit before, you know, this lunch is going to taste a little better. Or this meeting's going to be like a little easier, or like I'll be more creative for work. I was giving myself excuses to do it and like kind of fill some sort of hole of, now that I look back, I'm like, I don't know, it's been over 100 days. And it feels just a bit wild to think of how much it had this hold on me up until the point I admitted it to my family. When I told them, I felt released from it. I felt like I was like, oh, I'm breathing. I'm out of the water. Because I had stopped so many times. I told myself, oh, I'm going to quit. I'm not going to keep doing this. Do you ever use Reddit?
I've used Reddit, yeah.
So there's a subreddit. Its subreddit is reddit.com/r/leaves. If you're dealing with this, check this subreddit out. Okay, so if you go to, I think it's Sober, like one of the subreddits is called Sober or Alcohol. It has like 50,000 or maybe 75,000 members. This one called Leaves, which is all about people trying to stop smoking weed. It has, I think, 250,000 people in it, something like that, or more. And so that just shows you how many people are battling with this. And it's constant, it's story after story, post after post about like, I'm 70 days in, I relapsed. Like 2 weeks in, I can't sleep. Blah, 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 this. It's like, it's such a consistent thing because I think it seems so innocuous, and it is something that you mentally get hooked on. The physical addiction is, it has it like a week or two in, where you kind of get over it. You have night sweats and all that. You can't sleep as well. You're a little bit you're nauseous. You can't eat as well if people are really heavy with it. But there's a mental hook. It's just an edge. Like it's like having a drink at night. I think it's like, and alcohol would never really. I just hate that feeling of the next day. And I used to drink earlier, but for me, it's like weed was enough. Like it was innocuous enough.
Meanwhile, opens the beer.
Yeah, and enjoy that beer, dude. I love the taste of a beer. But like it was like the waking up, and it's not enough. It's almost like you don't hit rock bottom where you're like, oh, I have an issue. So you consistently stay in it. And a lot of the stories are like, been doing this for 20, 30 years. I'm like, holy shit, am I just going to spend my whole life not knowing what I'm like sober and just always kind of having like this routine, always being dependent on this thing? And it just, maybe that can work for some people and they live a happy life. Good for you. For me, it irked me. And I had noticed what it had done to my relationships. That was the worst part. I was no longer like seeking friendship, trying to be a good friend. I was just like seeking the solace of like smoking and doing it in isolation. Because like most of my friends weren't doing that. Yeah. And it didn't match with what I wanted to be. Like I wanted to be out. I wanted to have good conversations. Like if I was high right now, I'd be like, I'd be very nervous and anxious. It made me a shell of myself.
So I started smoking weed when I was 14 years old, and I smoked from 14 to 16, and then I started going to church. You see, and I didn't smoke again until I was 33 years old. So I spent half of my adolescence and then most of my early adult life without smoking weed. But I grew up, and Dad, I'm gonna put you out there. I grew up with knowing that my dad smoked weed, but then they would always hide that from me. And then all of my uncles on that side of the family smoke weed. They all still smoke. So I know there's something that definitely from a biological standpoint that this side of my family gravitates towards smoking weed for whatever benefits we gain from it. Then at 32, 33, I started smoking a little bit more, or I started smoking, period. And yeah, now it is part of a routine, I guess, but it doesn't hinder me. Look, any substance, this alcohol, this Red Bull, any substance can be debilitating to some people and then could even be beneficial to others. Alcohol could be temporarily beneficial to somebody suffering from a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
Is that it's an intelligent choice, very short term. When it becomes habitual, it becomes a bigger problem. The same with weed. Weed, short term, could have some benefits with creativity and loosening yourself a little bit, maybe disconnecting. But it depends. How is it impacting your life? How is it impacting your social life? Are you isolating? Do you have decreased motivation, decreased energy? Are you in a fog? Do you have short-term memory loss? Is it fucking with your sex drive? Is there libido issues? So you really have to look at what you're doing, whoever you are, and say, well, how is this helping or hurting me, or both? Because it could be helping you in some arenas and hurting you in others. And so then it becomes risk benefit. Like, okay, I'm willing to take the risks. These are the benefits I get from that. Okay, the benefit to me outweighs the risk. So I think it's a judgment call for everybody. But also you have to recognize that you need some insight, because I could very much justify if I was drinking a gallon of vodka every day and say, oh no, this is helping me. I can't sleep without it, and blah, blah, blah. So you have to really look at yourself long and hard in the mirror, or get collateral information from family members that recognize, hey Nelson, when you smoke, bro, you're disconnected. I can't have a conversation with you. We can't. It's not good for you. And if you can recognize that and listen to those outside voices that are telling you that, then great. But even better if you can look in the mirror and determine that for yourself. As for me right now, I mean, I enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I don't want people to look to me as an example of, oh, Adrian smokes weed, so I can smoke weed too. No, that's not the way it works, guys. The way it works is you have to look at yourself as an individual and say, how is this helping or hurting me? And you have to be real with yourself.
Yeah, that's it. You gotta be really honest, looking at yourself, and just, yeah, some things just aren't for us, and it's one of those where it'll be around sometimes, and I'm like, oh man, that would be pretty nice right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I play it through. I'm like, okay, then what happens after? What were the feelings that I didn't like? Oh, the anxiety that will build up. Like at one point, it's just like, it's crazy. You're doing this thing, but it's making you anxious. So then you chase it with more. You're like, well, that's going to be the solution. I'm going to just really like smoke myself stupid, and then there'll be no anxiety. And then you're like, oh, for a moment it fades, and then it comes in even stronger.
Comes in a tsunami.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, shit, I got to go to sleep, or let me eat myself into, like, it's just a whole, it was just a group of things together that are like not good, and you just chase the dragon. And
yeah. Besides my come to Jesus moment when I was like 16 and a half, I remember wanting to stop because in social settings I would clam up, and I've always been outgoing, extroverted, gregarious, like not afraid to have a conversation with anyone. And all of a sudden,
yeah,
I want to talk to chicks. I'm 15, 16 years old, and I can't because I freeze, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. And then by that time, the conversation's already carried on, and I had a witty thing to say, and it never came out. Now, as an adult, maybe it's just I'm more secure. Maybe from a neurological standpoint, like I'm already wired differently, so I can still be normal. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll look a little bit harder at myself and say, how is this helping or hurting me, right? Because there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, for sure. Like
a little self-assessment never hurt anybody.
Exactly. But yeah, I like it when people can do it for themselves and they're all cool. It's like, yeah, that just shows me that's what life is. It's like, not everything is for you. Not everything is for everyone. Find the things that work for you. Stick with those things. That's part of life's, like, understanding and knowing yourself, is having that wherewithal and the discipline to be like, dude, you just like, I can't go back to smoking. It's just, even though there's this sensation and desire at times where I'm like, oh, that would be really nice right now. It's like, yeah, but it's just not for you. And like being able to not do it is like, oh, sweet. Okay. I know this Nelson somewhere in there.
Sorry, I'm just looking to see if there was something we didn't cover that I really wanted to ask you about. And if not, we could do this again. I really don't care. I mean, I think we covered most of it.
Oh yeah, I took some notes. So let me just.
Oh, but what's funny, what you were saying right now, I just had a flash of that. You made a post a while ago that said something along the lines of, "Hey, you that talks about this one thing that that really works for you, and you don't want to shut the fuck up about it." What was it? I forgot what it was, but it was actually really funny. I was gonna repost it today. I'll go back and probably repost it. But basically saying just because it worked, it's like a vegan or somebody who does CrossFit, and all they want to do is come and talk to you about CrossFit, but it doesn't necessarily work for me. It's not going to work for me. It's not part of my life. It's not part of my lifestyle. But then you want to keep on shoving it in my face. And the last thing you said was, shut the fuck up. That's great. Let me see.
Yeah, I do the same thing. You know, I think maybe I was probably talking from my perspective of,
here we
you
go.
get stoked on something.
Fun fact, just because something works for you doesn't mean everyone else needs it in their life and has to hear about it from you all the goddamn time. Shut the fuck up.
Oh, yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, man. That was a lot of these also are me talking to myself. Like I'm like, there's someone out there like me who's dealing with this shit. And instead of trying to talk to a big group of people or like the masses, I'm like, if I just talk to myself, there's someone out there who's going to relate to this. Because yeah, it's like when I essentially got sober from weed, you know, I'm not gonna say I got sober from other things, but I got sober from weed. I'm like, oh, I want to tell fucking everyone about this. This is great. And there's all these people on this thing leaves who need to know about this. And my experiences really opened my eyes, and I can't believe. And I'm like, okay, am I gonna be this preachy asshole that like nobody wants to listen to, or can I just like live my experience, let it settle in, do my thing, talk about it when it's appropriate? And I think we're all a bit better off if we just kind of like figure our own shit out for a little bit. You know, obviously get therapy and help where you need it, but like not be so quick to rush to talk to. There's a lot of we have a lot of tools to like deliver the thing in a message, but I think there's a lot that goes into sitting, writing, being with yourself, really sitting on something for a good amount of time, because there's a lot of expectation now to do things quick, get them done, put them out there. If you're not doing it all the time, putting it out there, who are you? You're not relevant. Like you said, what's the point? And ultimately, it's like, hey, you're just living this life. It's the one you got. And at the end of the day, are you going to be worried about like all the Instagram followers you had? And
You're not.
They're not going to mean a goddamn thing. So if you just really, it's cliched, but it's so important. It's like if it was your last day, how would you spend your last day? You know,
For sure on Instagram, finding the right hashtags.
yeah. And it's not to be like, well, I'd go to a theme park and I'd blow all my money and do all that shit. It's like, no, you'd probably go to work because you didn't know tomorrow was gonna be this was gonna be your last day. You're gonna die when you wake up tomorrow morning, something like that. You would probably go to work, but like, how would you show up to work? How would you show up with your coworkers, the people around you? Would you like give it everything? Would you be there involved? Be like, we're doing this thing, no matter what you do, or would you be like, well, I can put it off, you know, like tomorrow's guaranteed. It's like we're all lulled into this idea collectively that like we're guaranteed all this time. And it's like, we're all fall trapped to this. It's like, dude, we just don't know.
Yeah, I've had these life lessons over and over. I started off in pediatric ICU, seeing kids die, watching parents holding their kids, which was bizarre at 23, watching, you know, all these different kids from motor vehicle accidents to gunshot wound victims to near drownings or drownings, and then the nursing home and working on the street with the homeless. All these things have just shaped my mind to realize like this thing is so quick, and so many people think that this is just gonna go on forever. Like, look, I am not having a midlife crisis, but I'm definitely seeing 40 is like a midway point. I don't know about you. It's like halfway point. I don't know if you ever use a Nike Run Club and she tells you halfway point.
Well, no, but I think I'm 34 and I'm like, I mean, there's people who drop dead at 50. And you're like, dude, obviously they dropped dead at all ages, but in terms of like, they just were living their life and then had some sort of condition thing that like kind of took them quickly, obviously like cancers and things like that. But yeah, I do think 34, man, I've already been 34 years here. And am I over the halfway point?
Yeah.
Am I over,
Where am I at right now, guys?
75% there.
How many years of working life do I have? At what point do I retire? What's going to happen in the next 30 years, right?
Is that even a thing that happens for me? Like
Yeah. So going back to what you were saying about writing on Instagram or being quote unquote preachy, the hashtag I was using for a long time was "Don't mind me," or I would just put hashtag preaching to myself because I was doing the same thing. I was writing things out, but really it was just a conversation I was having with myself and making it public. And that way, again, it went back to, hey, that theme of universality. If somebody else has to be going through this too, I can't be alone in this. And the more I did that, the more I realized, yeah, there's other people going through the same things. But unless you're vulnerable and you express that, you'll never get that DM. You'll never get that message saying, hey, thank you for this. Because you have to make yourself vulnerable for other people to feel empowered and say, me too. I'm going through the same thing. So,
yeah, I think there's a skill to that too. There's a skill to talking to someone but you're talking to yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like there's people who just talk to themselves and you're like, oh God. There's no skill here. There's a skill to being able to deliver it where someone else is like, that's me. I need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and in the end, they're like,
time.
oh wait, he was talking to himself. I thought he was talking to me. Yeah, it does. It takes a while to develop that thought. Like my girlfriend now, when we wake up or before we go to bed, if she sees I'm writing, at first when we first started dating or when she first started sleeping over or staying together, like I had to tell her, like, hey, I'm in a way I'm working. Like I'm writing. Writing takes effort. It takes energy. It takes thought. I'm not trying to ignore you. I'm just in my space right now. Yeah, I'm on my phone, but I'm not just playing on Instagram. Like I'm sorting and sifting through a thought process so I could deliver it in a way that is understood and that's to the quality that I want. Or I could use ChatGPT, right? So, but it's now she gets it. I think when you're with someone who writes, you start to realize how much effort goes into writing because you have to restructure sentences. You have to restructure just the format of what you're writing to say, oh, wait, this flows better the way I like it, the way I want it to read, the way that there's a little punch right here. There's a little bit of humor injected here in this line. Because that's different. Not everybody writes. And unless you're a writer, unless you sit down and take your time to really get your thoughts on paper, to deliver it in a certain way, then you don't just slap it together and just put it out there. No, it takes time to really sift through your thoughts and get it organized to the way that you're like, all right, this makes sense. Okay, cool. But I think there's a lost art right now in writers. I don't consider myself, I'm not like an elite writer, but I've always written. And so I know when I write something that's like, oh, this is a good piece. Okay, I really liked. And not only did I enjoy writing this, it's authentic. And I feel that the reader's really going to understand and grab a hold of it. And then other times it's like, oh, this is bullshit.
But they're fundamental. Like, I feel like if you're a human, you got to read and write.
No, man. I'll be honest. Like I listen to even my daughter and her friends. Like there's the patience that's required in writing is being lost.
Yeah, as a form to understand yourself, I think you just need to write and read to see what other people like, and read books like and not all the books. There's a lot of books. There's a lot of garbage.
All the books.
You can't read all of them. You gotta like find. There's people who've done this already, like the classics, right? There's like people who've ridden through time, or like I get a Nietzsche book, like listen to someone else or something.
Yeah,
else
they're
through
tried
time.
and tested books.
Yeah, autobiographies. There's a great podcast, Founders.
Okay.
The guy's actually based in Miami. He'll read a book about a founder or someone like a Bill Gates, something like that. Dale Carnegie, like what's another one? Steve Jobs, he did recently. I just listened to one about Michael Jordan, James Dyson, the guy who did the Dyson vacuums, like how he was persistent. He'll read books about them, autobiographies or biographies, and it's so great. You're like, man, this is so cool. I can listen to a book. It's not quite reading, but I can like gather this information. There's definitely something to reading though. This guy's reading. He's getting like, he's going back through it, taking notes, talking to you about the notes that relate to another episode. I'm like, this guy is getting so much education just by doing this podcast, and it's become really popular because it's easy to digest. You have a lot of takeaways, and it's like, man, this guy is the one getting the incredible education just from reading. And then you can write, you can understand what the hell you're thinking. And like, if you were to read a book, would you sound like an idiot, or would you, or would you at least have some half-baked ideas that we're all trying to convince someone of something, right?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you write? Everyone should write.
I hope somebody listening is like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm gonna write right now.
And you don't have to be a writer. You just got to fucking write.
Yeah, you got to write. And the only way to get good at it is by doing it. It's going to suck. You're going to write a lot of material that's garbage, a lot of things that won't sound like they're coming from your heart for real. It's going to take time to develop those thoughts, but it's like everything else, right? Everything good in life takes time. Nothing good comes easily.
Amen.
Bueno, Nelson, thank you so much for coming through today.
Adrian, thank you, man. This is great.
Keep on writing. Keep on being vulnerable. People are watching. Maybe the views aren't where you want them.
Dude, no, fuck that, dude. Maybe I'll have to go to YouTube or something like that. But
if you want, bro, jump back on a podcast, even if it's solo, put it out there. But I'll be honest with you, the hard part is not producing it like we're doing right now. The hard part is getting the content that can catch people to then drive them to your YouTube, drive them to Spotify. This part is easy. This part is fun. It's exciting. You get to know somebody. You learn a lot from these exchanges. But the only way to draw an audience is by chopping it up, finding things that have some value, and then throwing it up and using hashtags and music and all those fun things that you don't like.
Yeah, dude, play the game, you know?
Play the fucking game.
Dude, I love how you're playing the game. Like, keep it up. You do the vulnerable stuff. I think for people to see someone who works in the mental health space, being vulnerable, putting themselves out there, doing the talking videos. You got something cooking, man. I'm
trying. I'm doing the work every day. That much. I'm being consistent. And that's it. And I'm not afraid of the judgment. So I think that's what I want. I'm doing what I tell other people to do. So I just want to be a man of action and say, hey, if I'm telling you to work out, I'm working out. We'll work on my handstand another day. But like everything that I preach, I do. Right? I'm not trying to tell people, oh, you should do this, and then I'm obese and sedentary and just eating shit in life and not motivated and not pursuing passions. No, I'm trying to get people to do things that move them physically and emotionally, spiritually, in every aspect. So I think we're done.
Thank you.
No, thanks, bro. Let me end this.